Good afternoon for me, everybody. Welcome to day 3. So, unlike Joshua from yesterday and Janice and a bunch of the other Alvanon team members who were presenting to you like literally through the night, I've got the privilege of doing all of this, hosting this third and final day at the civilized local time of 2 p.m. So it's 2 p.m. for me now. Running through for 6 hours until 8 p.m. here. I know there's a lot of time zones represented in the audience. I see Joshua's actually online, which is, love God, man, get some sleep. But wherever you're joining us from, whether it's the right time of day for a coffee, right time of day for a whiskey, right time of day for some kind of herbal tea, if you're better behaved than I am, thanks for spending the next few hours with us if you're doing it live. And if you're doing this in the future on demand, thanks for setting aside the time to do that as well. You can pause it. You can come back to this at the right time to suit you. So don't feel like you have to watch this at midnight. You know, you do you. Then you've got the folks in the middle that Sal just referenced, which is the people who are able to be with us live today, but might not be able to watch every session. As Sal mentioned in the introduction there, everything's being recorded. So we are going to make all of these things available on demand through 3dtechfest.com. So you'll have the luxury of watching back any sessions that you miss live. Before we get properly underway, there's a few ways that Sal mentioned, and I'm just going to underline that you can join in the conversation. If you're watching this on YouTube now, there's a comment box on the right-hand side. If you put any comments and questions in there, where time permits, we'll try and get to those during and around the sessions with the individual speakers. Where time doesn't permit, we won't miss anything. We'll try to take any key questions offline. You've then got the Slack channel as well, so the Slack community. That's been really active over the last couple of days. I've been dipping in and out myself as I've been able to watch the sessions. And then if you want to ask a question that's around the subject, but maybe not directly pitched at one of the speakers or at myself, then that's your place to do it. That's the place to just have a broader conversation about 3D, about digital product creation. As I mentioned, some sessions will have time for open Q&A, some we might not, some I might be a bit selfish and just kind of lead the conversation myself and ask some questions of my own. But try and participate where you can. Try and share where you're from, try and share what you're interested in, what areas of 3D and digital product creation appeal to you in particular. We have booked in some time for a break later on, so we're not 6 hours straight, and we'll let you know when we're going to kind of go to the holding music and give you a chance to grab whatever sort of drink is appropriate for the time of day that it is for you. We've got some great speakers today, equally as good as day 1 and day 2, I hope. But I'm going to steal their march a little bit, and I'm going to commandeer 5 or 10 minutes now, because I want to try and wrap everything up that you're going to hear today in some kind of context. And because I want to talk a bit about the title here, the one that you see on the slide that I'm sharing with you now, because it's a big title, right? Technology for a better world. Sounds maybe, it could sound a little bit presumptuous depending on how you're thinking about it, because we're not sequestering carbon here, and we're not saving the turtles or anything along those lines. We're talking about 3D and digital product creation for fashion. How does that make for a better world? So I'm going to spend the next few minutes and give you my take on why I think that is. I'll give you my take on why using technology to make fashion more efficient, more inclusive, more accessible, why that has an impact both on the folks inside the industry, the kind of people who are here right now today, some of whom I'm sure have spent decades thinking about digital product creation and 3D, and how it has an impact on people outside the industry's walls, consumers, creators, people who are not traditionally part of the fashion ecosystem, who've been excluded for one reason or another. What does all of this mean for them? So before I get into that, though, who am I? I know Joshua did a very kind job of teeing me up yesterday. So I'm definitely somebody who's standing in the very long shadow that Janice and Joshua have cast over the last couple of days. But I'm also not a total beginner to all of this. I've worked as an analyst, researcher, commentator, and speaker for fashion technology for, I think it's nearly 15 years. It's an awfully long time. And Day to day, I run the Interline, which if you haven't come across it, it's a totally free to read publication. It's dedicated to technology for fashion across the full spectrum, from inspiration and design through technical development, engineering, sourcing, production. Late last year, we ran our first ever fully free to download report on digital product creation in fashion. That was in December 22. That's still available, still free to read and ungated. You don't need an email address to download it, so feel free to check that out in the report section of the Interline. We're going to be doing the same thing in December of this year as well. So there's a 2023 edition. I'm pretty excited about that. We've got some cool new creative designers on board. We've got some great technology companies already on board. We've got some pretty cool brand editorial and different perspectives coming up. So keep an eye out for that in December. This is also the second time that I've been asked to help host 3D Tech Fest. I did the third day last year, and I've got the honor of doing the third day this time around as well. So I just want to revisit something that I said last year when I had this platform, this same kind of opening remarks and hosting role. And what I talked about last year was decompartmentalizing, which is a very long word, or unboxing 3D and digital product creation. And that's a really long-winded way of saying that all of this has traditionally been filed away and circumscribed as being like a design and development discipline. 3D was something that you did if you were a designer, or if you were a product developer, if you worked with patterns, that whole kind of sphere, and it stood over there and it was separate from everything else. Last year, I spoke about the importance of taking it out of that box and taking some of the tools and the processes and the assets that are created in 3D tools and through the whole broader digital product creation ecosystem, and giving different teams and different stakeholders, I'm doing that purposely, the ability to make creative and commercial choices based on digital assets, right? So not just designers, not just developers, but other teams. This year, I want to circle back to that because I kind of stand by it, but I also think using words like teams and departments and stakeholders, it's a really distant and analytical way of talking about something that is a lot more like creative and spontaneous and empowering. And instead, as we're going to see throughout all the presentations today, and as I'm kind of hinting at here, when we're thinking about 3D and digital product creation and how that can make for a better world, we really should be thinking about people. We should be thinking about what all this means for new creators, new consumers, new talents, all these people who are helping to redefine how fashion works and who fashion is for. So what does that mean for today's agenda, right? It means we're going to be talking about 3D and digital product creation, not just in an abstract sense or as a set of principles or as a set of tools or business strategies. We're going to be talking about it as one of the major keys that we can turn to get to a fashion industry that is responsive and socially responsible. One that recognizes the need to challenge who consumers can be, not just what experiences they can have, but who they are. A fashion industry that captures digital assets and brings them to the widest range of channels and audiences it possibly can. So making things like virtual try-on and immersive experiences accessible to absolutely everyone, eliminating barriers. It's a fashion industry that welcomes and actively works to grow a new generation of talent. All of this can help to make a fashion industry that offers a pathway to new creators, allowing them to get into the virtual space and allowing them to tap into opportunities in high fashion, in mass market fashion that have traditionally been closed to them. And it can help make a fashion industry that breaks down what traditional product categories should be, who they should be for, and that uses digital tools in pursuit of inclusivity. So, as I mentioned, big title, but we've got a lot of big topics to cover. And I'm really lucky to be able to kind of lead in and lead out and chat around and speak with a roster of presenters who are really well equipped individually and collectively to talk about all of this stuff and to start to demonstrate how all of this works and how it does anchor into a better world. So before I hand over to our first speaker, I'm just going to say that that industry I just painted, the one that's more inclusive, the one that breaks down barriers, the one that embraces digital assets for everybody, the one that empowers creators and consumers, that's the fashion industry I want to be a part of. There's a reason I've done all of this for 15 years, and it's not because I get to spend a bunch of time in boardrooms talking to boardroom members and executives and VPs. That's cool, and that kind of helps to spearhead adoption. The fashion industry I want to be part of is one where we use digital product creation to lower barriers to entry, empower and connect people, and extend product categories and experiences to everybody. All of which is stuff that not tools, but people who use those tools are going to make possible. I've been watching day one and day two. Not 100%. I've done my very best around my kind of personal and professional commitments. But I picked a couple of real kind of highlight quotes from the last 2 days that underline what I think is the theme here. The first was from Safir Bilali, who's somebody I know quite well. He talked about in his presentation about global communities and inclusive experiences that are unlocked by digital assets. He was specifically showcasing the work for Louis Vuitton, but that's a principle that applies across the board. It's not just reserved for luxury brands and high fashion brands. And Joshua, my co-host yesterday, he talked in his opening about combating years of ingrained thinking. And that's as true in those boardrooms that I talked about, where you're having to kind of challenge that notion that digital product creation belongs just in design and development. But it's true when we think about the fashion industry more broadly, whether you're talking sustainability, whether you're talking diversity and inclusion, there's so many opportunities to say, is the way we work the way that we should work? If not, what are the tools and the processes that can unlock it and that can enable it? And I'm here because, well, A, I was invited, but B, I believe digital product creation in 3D can do all of that. So it's a big title, it's a big ask, but I think the tools and the people are really up to the challenge.